answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
On day 10 of Operation Epic Fury, we are winning with an overwhelming and unrelenting focus on our objectives. We will not relent until the enemy is totally and decisively defeated. But we do so on our timeline and at our choosing. For example, today will be yet again our most intense day of strikes inside Iran. The most fighters, the most bombers, the most strikes. Intelligence more refined and better than ever. So that's on one hand. On the other hand, the last 24 hours have seen Iran fire the lowest number of missiles they've been capable of firing yet. You see, this is not 2003. This is not endless nation building under those types of quagmires we saw under Bush or Obama.
That is our Secretary of War, Hegseth, giving an update as to what's happening in Iran, pointing out that we are winning. Iran knows that. They won't ever admit it, but they know that. Their latest appointed leader, the son of the man we have taken off the map of the earth, is still in hiding, but supposedly still trying to coordinate activities to the best they can to fight against what we're doing. And they're failing. And yet we have inside this nation some who continue to criticize what we're doing and are whimpering that, oh, this is going to be costing me at the store and the gas pump. I'm on the verge of losing total patience on this point. There's never been a war, aside from losing lives and families and all the other pain and suffering that lasts beyond the existence of the actual shooting, where there has not been pain suffered by the civilian population to some extent, economic type. In a few moments, I want you to hear from retired General Jack King as to why are we so focused on the cost at the fuel pump as opposed to what we're doing to protect America, Israel, and the world. I'll get into that as we move forward. Welcome to hour number one, Larry Connors USA, March 10, 2026. And reminding you, when we're on the air, we are streaming video. You can watch the program. How do you do that? You go to NewsTalkSTL, Rumble, Facebook, Twitter. Larry Connors USA, Rumble, or Facebook. And after the program, each is put up as a podcast, video and audio, available at NewsTalkSTL, LarryConnorsUSA.com, and Larry Connors USA Facebook. And with Larry Connors USA, we're here for you every Monday through Friday from 6 to 8. You're going to get news, analysis, opinion, and education. You will leave each hour with more information than you have as we began. That's a guarantee for you on every program. In our next hour, we're going to be joined by Dr. John West, author of a new book, Endowed by Our Creator, basically talking about the fact that we need to look at the Bible, science, and the battle for America's soul at this point. And also James Carville, the Raging Cajun, saying the Democrats are too wild. They got to get back in the line, the moderate, and that Omar woman, she ain't helping them. Oh, you'll hear direct from James Carville later. And, of course, maybe you've seen on some of the leftist-leaning particular media how he's continuing to F Trump this, F Trump that. Yeah, he does that as well. And later in this hour, do we have public schools or do we have public indoctrination centers? And to that extent, is college really worth the cost anymore? Are your students really getting an education? And at what cost? That's the other issue. And our story behind the story today, in this hour, we flash back to 1966. The University of Texas sniper who killed 16, wounded more than 30. That's our story behind the story before we complete this hour. Now back to what's in front of us right now, and that is, of course, dealing with Iran. General Jack King, Raisin King, as he likes to be called, and his latest assessment.
Since our last update, CENTCOM continues to make progress across the southern flank. To date, they've struck more than 5,000 targets. U.S. Strategic Command bombers recently dropped dozens of 2,000-pound GPS-penetrating weapons on deeply buried missile launchers across the southern flank. We also have struck several one-way drone factories to get at the heart of their autonomous capability. And of course, alongside our regional partners along the southern flank, continue to execute intercepts against one-way attack drones using fighters and attack helicopters. Our strikes mean we've made significant progress in reducing the number of missile and drone attacks out of Iran. Ballistic missile attacks continue to trend downward, 90% from where they've started, and one-way attack drones have decreased 83% since the beginning of the operation.
A success at every point. And add to that, any loss of American life is a loss. And I hate to say, but we have only 7 reported so far, but that is the fact. And pray that we don't have more. We have had some fighter jets shot down by surface-to-air missiles, but the pilots were able to get out. And if you recall, even Kuwait shot down some of our fighters in a friendly fire incident. But again, the crew survived. Now, one of Iran's top remaining officials is warning President Trump, a warning to President Trump from an Iranian leader, the Supreme National Security Council Secretary. You be careful not to be eliminated. He does that via a Twitter account. He's not going to appear on camera anywhere. He's not going to be seen anywhere where maybe he might be taken out. But they have the Supreme National Security Council Secretary warning Trump, you need to realize Epic Fury will fail and you will be taken out. And we will end up winning. Well, in the meantime, we have those inside our nation, including inside Congress, that continue to hammer away about what we're doing. Now, I have no problem with asking what we're doing and how and why and can we justify it. I'm all about that. But the issue for many comes down to you didn't go through Congress and get full approval. You don't need to do that. We have not done that in the past, even with Obama. And it's not a violation of the War Powers Act. And among those complaining about what we're doing and what's the next step, Kentucky Senator Republican Rand Paul.
As far as the reasons for the war, there have been many different reasons floated, but none of them, I think, have been very convincing. One reason is that we want to free the Iranian people from oppression. I have a great deal of sympathy. I want people to be free around the world, but if our foreign policy is to free oppressed people, I'm not sure where war would end. I mean, there are many people that are said to be oppressed in China, Tibet, the Uyghurs, North Korea, Russia. Where would war end if our goal is to free oppressed people? So I think that goal is too grandiose and would perpetually tie us up in war. Another statement has been made, well, they're a week away from a nuclear weapon. You can take clips from the 90s all the way through the present of people arguing that they're a week away from nuclear weapons. Then there were arguments made where their ballistic missiles are almost able to reach the U.S. But then our intelligence countered that and said, really, they would be 6 months to a year if they made that attempt.
But do you want to allow them to have 6 months to a year to get closer? Do you want to allow them additional weeks to get a nuclear weapon ready? I will go with Senator Rand Paul on this concern. We cannot police oppression around the world. We cannot do that, and that is a shame. but we just cannot. We have to take care of our nation first. But taking care of our nation does involve making sure Iran does not have nuclear capability. And Senator Rand Paul, if you had just stuck to the oppression issue, I'd say, I understand where you're coming from. But then you just kind of want to kick that can down the road, reference any ballistic missile threat. Retired General Jack King.
For 47 years, they lived in a war status. I mean, the fact is their principal goal has been to export the Islamic Revolution, as they refer to it, that occurred in 79, they took over in 80, and export that to the region and to the world writ large. And to do that, they resource their proxies to help expand their domination and control of the Middle East. And they certainly have made war on Israel as a result of all of that. And they tried to drive the United States out of the region. That has been their goal. That has been the Ayatollah's main objective. And they're dead serious about it. These are ideologues for sure, diabolical and tyrannical. And the sun is a reflection of that. Where the regime is right now, with him at the helm of the leadership, is they intend to do everything that they can to survive. They are determined to keep this regime in place. They want to outlast the United States.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's the key issue, Senator Rand Paul. And for the others questioning what we're doing. General Jack King raises another vital issue, as I discussed in the beginning monologue for you. The focus on how targeting Iran for many is an issue, well, it might end up costing me at the gas station.
Are we really saying that we cannot accept several weeks of oil prices maybe being higher than what they should be to take Iran off the map as a predator in the Middle East for decades to come? Is that what we're really saying? That we're so preoccupied with that we're not willing to make that kind of a sacrifice here? I think not. I mean, I think we got to open our eyes, get a little clear-eyed about what is really happening here. And if we fall prey to walking away on this prematurely over oil prices, we've just given Iran a win.
Yeah, just because the gas prices might go up. Oil prices did hit $100 a barrel the other day, right? But they're back down again. And even CNN had to admit it.
Been a little bit of positive movement in the markets after the president told CBS that the war is pretty much complete. What's the latest?
Yeah, oil prices hitting their lowest level of the day after crashing through that $100 a barrel benchmark overnight, even reaching up to $115, $120 a barrel. Those are numbers that we haven't seen for nearly 4 years since the war between Russia and Ukraine broke out. But investors on Wall Street were also encouraged by that conversation that President Trump had with CBS News. Markets really made a turnaround. The Dow closing up 239 points. Look at that, most of the day in the red, finishing in the green. Also the NASDAQ and S&P closing in the green. This is really investors reacting to news, being headline sensitive, as they've been saying for the past couple weeks or so.
And that could go the other way again. You have to recognize it. The yin-yang of what's going on with the economic situation and the world concern. And our issue we also have to be aware of is terrorists inside our nation, especially since the Democrats continue their shutdown, and basically we got DHS employees still on the job, TSA employees still on the job, but there's just shortage of them. Flights are being backed up, and yet you got to be careful at every step of the way. Why? Well, because as one Islamic scholar makes it clear, we're coming for you.
Wants to put a Muslim ban. He wants to ban Muslims. We will tell him, this isn't your country to ban. This is the land of Allah, as every land is the land of Allah. And there are Muslims here that are going to be here. And if you don't like it, I would suggest he goes somewhere else. But I don't know where he's going to go. If he goes back to Europe, a lot of Muslims in Europe. I've been there recently. You go to Africa, you go to South America, you go to China, you go to Malaysia, you go to Japan, you go to the Antarctic. There's Muslims. So I would make a suggestion. If he wants to go somewhere where there is no Muslims, I suggest he goes to hell. And know that our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has given us the glad tidings that this religion of Islam will enter every household. Every household. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Sahih Hadith, he told us, this ummah, the guarantee, this ummah who will be victorious, and those that try to overcome them will not be able to.
He's talking about entering your home here in the USA. You know, I've always tried to walk a thin line, and it's been a thin line, a tightrope, you might say, that I don't alarm people or reference those who have a different religion. I don't want you to be alarmed. I want you to be aware. But when you hear out-and-out hate preached that way, that if you're not going to accept Islamic rule, we're not even talking about Muslim, we're talking about Islamic rule, Sharia law, then you go to hell. And we will take your country, because your country now belongs to us, or will soon. It kind of makes me want to back up on any cautions I've ever advised about getting upset because someone's religion is different than yours. Make this the bottom line. If their religion is intent upon killing you and your family because of your religion, then hell yes, we have an issue, and we need to deal with it directly. And just today, a Southwest Airlines flight had to be diverted. And when it landed, before anyone could get up, an announcement was made, all passengers put your hands in the air. We want to see your hands as we come on and take you off row by row. What sparked the crisis? Supposedly, a Muslim passenger had a tone on his phone calling a time for prayer. And it set off concern for passengers on board the plane. I can't say totally I blame them. When we continue to hear those around us preach, we will destroy you. Turned out no real threat. Everyone was allowed to continue. Coming up, public schools or public indoctrination. What do we have, actually? And is college worth the cost? And the story behind the story, the 1966 mass murder by a sniper at the University of Texas. The story behind the story. Lock and load, ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Another day must be another roofer in town. And John Beal and I were talking. He said, you know, every time you turn around, there's a new roofing company. Many of them have no idea what they're doing, and the statistics show that many will be out of business within 2 to 5 years. Who are you going to call to help you then? You need to remember only one name, John Beal. John Beal Roofing. You have a problem, he can take care of it. And we'll be here for you. John Beal Roofing. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. You should know that when I endorse Wellington Environmental, it's because I believe and know they will do you right. Wellington takes pride in providing homeowners and businesses whatever they need. You need some dustless blasting, they will take care of that. You need some mold remediation, they can do that. They take pride in training their team to perform multiple services and having the equipment ready to get jobs finished. That's important to you. You make just one call, and you call a company that's been around for more than 35 years with more than 45 technicians in the field. Most of you know finding good workers, then having them show up on time could be difficult. Not for Wellington Environmental. They're there at the designated time, ready to go. Check them out to see what they could do for you. Dustless blasting or anything else you need. Wellington Environmental, 314-644-4930. 314-644-4930. Be well with Wellington. March, the season of fresh starts, more daylight, more energy. A perfect time to take a fresh look at your home. Your windows or doors are outdated, inefficient? Check with Renewal by Andersen. From your first design consultation through final installation, every detail is handled by one experienced, dedicated team. Clear communication, precise craftsmanship. Renewal by Andersen windows built with our exclusive Fibrex material, stronger than vinyl. And right now, during our March savings event, take $400 off every window, $800 off every door, and get a free upgrade to Smart Sun Glass. No money down, no payments, no interest for 12 months. But this ends March 31st. Call 877-WINDOWS, 877-WINDOWS, or visit rbastl.com. rbastl.com. Superior products, exceptional service. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as support dogs for our brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com.
This is News Talk STL.
Oh, baby, when you talk like that, you make a woman go mad. So be wise and keep on reading the signs of my body. I'm on tonight, you know my hips don't lie, and I'm starting to feel you, boy. Come on, let's go real slow. Don't you see, baby, I see us perfect.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Welcome back. As I was addressing the point before we went to that last break, is college worth it anymore? And are public schools really public schools or public indoctrination centers? I want to get into those and additional subjects as well with Mark Kwan. He's founder and president of the Perfect Portfolio, author of Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes, which we'll discuss as well. But let's begin with an issue also raised by fellow author Robert Bortons about what are we getting right now? Are we getting public schools or government-run indoctrination centers? Let's begin there, Mark. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely think they're GRICs. There's no such thing as public schools. They're literally government-run indoctrination centers. They have been, and it's the reason why I just hated school when I was a kid. I knew there was something wrong with the school system, and that's why I ended up leaving school after grade 9. I knew there was something wrong with the schooling system. It's even worse today.
Well, you are obviously evidence that you can leave without even a high school degree and still be successful. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I left school after grade 9. I went to school for a little bit in Los Angeles for grade 10. And problem is it was gang infested. It was a very poor neighborhood. So I kept getting robbed by knife point at school. And I got beat up at school one day. And I realized that school in Los Angeles wasn't going to be that healthy experience. Plus, the kids in school couldn't read. They did testing at the kids in school in Los Angeles, and they couldn't read and write, and they were in grade 9, or grade 10 at the time. So
yeah, and that's pretty much the same thing we're seeing now. So looking at where colleges are now and what they're wanting for tuition and so forth. Of course, they have these great endowment funds. They do not have to get all this money from the students, but they don't want to touch their endowment funds. And the cost of going to college now, even if it's not an Ivy League, is it worth it?
It's actually not worth it. Absolutely not. I'm a big fan of college is a scam. You realize that all schools, they're not created to create independent thinkers. They were actually created by the Industrial Revolution to create obedient people who don't independently think. They've done studies on this. People who go to school for college for 2 years, they lose the ability to independently think. After 4 years, it's almost non-existent anymore. They literally cannot independently think. They're just stuffing their ideas down their throat and turn them into passive income streams for Wall Street and big government.
Well, I don't know, of course, where you're getting that information, but I mean, I know several people that do come away with a good education and they're constant thinking anyway, and they may or may not be in a particular science or some general arts form. So I'm going to have some contradiction there. I don't think they're all coming out without the ability to think.
So I'll give you an example. The entire population has been brought up with the idea that they're supposed to work hard, save money, get good credit, put your money into a retirement account, and pay your taxes. Everyone agrees with that. That's just not true. That's actual system. If you look at the financial service industry, it's created by Wall Street and big government. The regulatory environment is actually a private company. They fund themselves and they get to regulate themselves. This is who's even educating the financial advisors. So when you go to college, you're learning the system there, which is worse today because now you're gonna bury yourself in student loans to try and get a job, and those things will chase you to the grave. You can never get rid of those student loans.
I will agree with you to that extent because generally when we have a regulation and a regulatory agency created, it ends up becoming the tool and the weapon of the industry it's supposed to be regulating.
Yeah, the schooling system was not built. The whole schooling system was to kill independent thought and make you think that working hard, getting a job, funding a retirement account, even the word retirement was created by the government and Wall Street. They needed to create the word retirement to convince the population they're supposed to work until 65 to 70, and then they had to create the word retirement account. The whole system is indoctrination.
Well, the other part of that is that we need trades. We need tradesmen and women, and they earn a lot of good money. They put in some long, hard hours. Go ahead.
I'm huge on trade schools. I'm huge. I'm a super advocate of trade schools. Trade schools are amazing. Home schools amazing. Trade schools are amazing. No, trade schools are a different part of the system. You're actually learning a trade. You're not learning gender studies or pronouns.
Yeah, that's true. Not very likely. I don't think a hammer has either gender, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's changed.
Hey, a hammer has one thing, just hit a nail. I mean, I grew up doing construction. I've done every type of construction. I've done roofing. I've done siding. I've been under houses. I used to do bricklaying with my dad. I've worked in factories. I've done all the trades. So, I learned a lot in those.
And the other part of it is that I've always felt that unless you have a degree in a particular specific thing, like let's say engineering, I mean something truly specific, or medicine, not a generic. I have a BS, which I use quite often, the BS part, you can imagine, in political in political science. But unless you're specifying something like I said, a technology. Things of that nature, you don't really need a full 4-year degree anyway. Maybe a 2-year degree will suffice.
These days, you can learn a subject with AI 1,000 times faster than you could in a school. Are you kidding me? I have the opinion that now is the greatest time in the history of humanity to go get financially free. Anybody can do it. You have the most powerful tool. You can learn any subject lightning fast. You certainly don't need to need a school to teach it to you.
Well, the other part, I've often felt that for many, that 4-year degree just proves that you can stick with something and accomplish it, as opposed to actually getting value.
Right. And certainly that there's a certain amount of, stick with it there. But you have to realize that the school is not creating you to be an entrepreneur or something like that. I mean, there was a time where most of the population was entrepreneurs. Then they created the schooling system and they killed entrepreneurship because they want people to think like, employees for a corporation. And that's the thinking that they put into you in school. So there's a danger in that. I did go to college for a little bit in Canada. I went for finance, business, and economics, but I knew that college was a scam. In my opinion, it was. I went to have a good time with my friends in Canada, and I knew I was going to leave and go become an entrepreneur. But it was a fun time. I got to rack up all my student loans and credit card debts and have a fun, good time.
Did you bother paying them back?
I did. I moved to Los Angeles. I got a job as a private investigator. I started making lots of money, and then I bought some real estate. It went up, and I paid back all my debt.
You're listening to Mark Kwan.
I didn't do it from working hard. I did it from investing.
You're listening to Mark Kwan, founder and president of the Perfect Portfolio. Very quickly, on your book, Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes, it sounds like a dream.
It's actually a pretty simple strategy. I've been teaching it to even a 9-year-old. My youngest student is 9. My oldest student is 95 and was a former fighter pilot. Simple. Anybody can buy stocks on their iPhone. If they don't sell them, they never pay capital gains taxes. You can take a low interest loan using margin, and you can send that money to your bank account. That money has never been taxed. You didn't work for it. And if you invest it, it fights inflation with inflation. So it's you buy assets, you never sell them, you borrow from them, and then when you die, you can pass up to $30 million to your family tax-free if you're married under current tax codes.
If you made good investments, but of course, if you're looking at day trading or you're buying on the bubble as we had for a period of time, what happens at that point? You're looking down the wrong road.
Well, you have to raise your financial literacy. So imagine you take $100 and you're like, all right, I'll start with $100. Maybe you want to put $20 in a gold ETF, $20 in a silver ETF, $20 in Amazon, and $20 in Microsoft, and $20 in a covered call ETF that generates a 14% dividend. Well, those things are going to go up and down, but gold and silver, we know where that is going over the long term. And then if you're on Amazon stock or Google stock or something like that, or Microsoft, they're not going anywhere. Just keep buying forever and never sell.
You're listening, Mark Kwan again, the founder and president of the Perfect Portfolio. You might often see him on Newsmax. In the closing view, I do want to circle back, as Jen Psaki would have said, and that is make it clear that you're not condemning all universities for failure and indoctrinating. It's just that students have to be more alert and aware, and certainly the parents, if they're going to be paying for it, as the taxpayer.
Very, very much. Unfortunately, the Department of Education, which created the education system, is all funded by, a certain ideology. So, I just have to say that the roots, where the teachers are being educated, and when those teachers are being educated generationally, it's certainly not producing entrepreneurs. That's the reason why most entrepreneurs drop out of college when they kind of look at it.
All right, Mark, again, thank you for your time today, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show.
You bet. Speaking about that, how the universities have changed, I have, at the University of Texas for years, I was going to go to University of Texas. When I lived in Texas, I ended up taking 6 years to do a 4-year degree because I was working my way through. But the University of Texas began to change. They brought in a lot of blue blood, blue labeled ideas out of the Ivy League schools, and they brought with them their fellows, and they continued to basically eradicate education and promote indoctrination, which is exactly what he was suggesting. And speaking of University of Texas, that is our story behind the story of a mass murder in the University of Texas.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
I want to share something with you. Cooking a pizza using coal creates an amazing pizza. Only one place to get it, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield. Of course, they offer a wide variety of pasta, but you just visit the website NapoliSTL.com, dine in or take out, and get ready for patio season. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Try it. You can thank me later. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Finally, March, the season of fresh starts, more daylight, more energy. A perfect time to take a fresh look at your home. Your windows or doors are outdated and efficient? Check with Renewal by Anderson. From your first design consultation through final installation, every detail is handled by one experienced, dedicated team. Clear communication, precise craftsmanship. Renewal by Andersen Windows, built with our exclusive Fibrex material, stronger than vinyl. And right now, during our March savings event, take $400 off every window, $800 off every door, and get a free upgrade to Smart Sun Glass. No money down, no payments, no interest for 12 months. But this ends March 31st. Call 877-WINDOWS, 877-WINDOWS, or visit rbastl.com. rbastl.com. Superior products, exceptional service.
This is News Talk STL.
And it's bad, Leroy Brown, the baddest man in the whole damn town. Better than old King Kong, meaner than a jump.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA. Now, Larry Connors with the story behind the story.
BBC Television News now presents a special program on today's mass murder in the capital city. Here is KTBC Television News Editor Neil Spells.
Good evening. One of history's worst mass murders occurred here in Austin today. By official count tonight, 49 persons were hit by gunfire. There are 16 dead and 33 injured. It started last night when a man reportedly killed his wife and his mother. That same man apparently rounded up an arsenal and supplies this morning and then went to the observation deck of the University of Texas Tower. It was then that terror rained down from the tower. Charles Ward was there and described the shooting.
There must have been a hit that last time. We hear people outside of our building in an area where we can't now look safely saying, let's help that boy. Does he need help? Someone must be down.
The shots ringing down in Austin, the state capital of Texas, at the University of Texas Tower. Date 1966. Charles Whitman was up in the clock tower. The total height was 307 feet tall, but he's around 230 feet. An observation deck where he was in perfect position to shoot down anyone he saw open on the streets below him. And without warning, the shots started. And among one of the first killed was a young woman. The first, I should say, shot, an 18-year-old, and she was pregnant. And her child, her baby boy, was actually the first considered to be killed from the tower. It was a tourist shot in the head as he had tried to get around the makeshift barricade that Whitman had constructed on the floor where he was at that point. Another tourist shot as she was trying to get away from him, going down the stairwell. But then down below him, he had the streets laid out and open targets everywhere. There is another part of the story that I'll get to a little bit later as to how I first learned about this case. I was not in Texas at the time. As to what really prompted him, it was not really clear. There have been different stories and different motives proposed, but basically it was just an attitude. He'd already been upset with his mother, his wife, between killing them and then going out and deciding to shoot down innocent people in the streets of Austin. Others had considered him up to this point just a guy that might be joking around a lot, practical joker, but somewhat morbid. One of his friends later acknowledged that in Whitman's first year of studies, he stood at the window of his dorm room staring at the UT Tower before he made the remark, a person could stand off an army from the top of it before they got to him. He had killed his wife and his mother around 12:30 that morning. He got to the tower around 12 that day, and then the shooting began. He was choosing no one in particular. Wasn't going for just men or women or color, but anyone that he considered a threat, he obviously went after, but he also was shooting down anyone that he had a chance. He did kill one Austin police officer who was trying to get a shot at him from a position, and Whitman saw him first and got off the first shot. The entire city of Austin came to a stop because everything at that point was centered pretty much around the university anyway, as you would expect with any university town. When he had killed his wife and then stabbed his mother to death with a bayonet, he did put 2 suicide notes upon a yellow legal pad. He had stabbed his wife to the heart. In both suicide notes, he professed love for his wife and mother, saying he killed them to spare them humiliation, but also the intense hate that he had, how he had been raised, and in particular, his father. He rented a hand truck before driving to the bank, cashed $250 worth of bad checks drawn on an account, then went to a hardware store and started buying weapons and ammunition. Then he went to the tower, and the sniping began.
And the battle goes on.
Sirens screamed for the 90 minutes that the gun battle was in progress. It was hot, past 90 degrees on the ground, probably much hotter, high atop the tower with the sun ricocheting off the limestone with the same intensity as the police bullets. Students, co-eds, crouched at the place where they could find safety. Austin police were reinforced in their gun battle by sheriff's deputies, by Texas highway patrolmen, by Texas Rangers, and some citizens who were deputized when they offered their services. But from the time the first call came in to the UT police at 11:48 a.m. until Austin police gunned down the man they said was the sniper at 1:22 p.m., the university campus resembled a battlefield. Dead people were lying on the hot sidewalks, and dozens of courageous persons risked death time and time again to try to save them. One funeral director driving an ambulance was shot and critically injured trying to help. An Austin policeman lost his life. A University of Texas professor was killed. Countless students and innocent bystanders fell without knowing what hit them. A boy riding a bicycle was picked off with deadly accuracy.
Again, that is part of the coverage of that day in Austin, Texas, 1966, when Charles Whitman ended up killing 15, injuring 31 others. The whole incident lasting about 96 minutes. You heard them mention the accuracy, which brings me back to what I was going to tell you about earlier as to where I was when I learned about this, and somewhat of a gallows humor that surrounded what I was told. So yes, there is more to the story behind the story.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Do you know why I endorse Cafe Napoli, all the locations? Visit any of them, and you will quickly appreciate the quality of food, service, atmosphere. So maybe I'll see you at Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli Kirkwood, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C. Or maybe you'll find me at Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Now you know why I endorse Napoli, NapoliSTL.com.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, the end of the story behind the story.
The rifle that Whitman was aiming was a military surplus carbine, one of an arsenal of 7 firearms that were found in a footlocker that Whitman had hauled up with him. Besides the carbine, there was a 6mm Remington Magnum equipped with a 4-power scope sight, a 35 caliber pump rifle, plus a 12-gauge sawed-off shotgun, 2 handguns, a .357 Magnum and a 9mm Luger, and another gun that was later discovered on Whitman's body. There were other supplies and weapons in the footlocker: a hammer, a hatchet, 2 hunting knives, one a large bowie knife with a bone handle, gasoline, rags, a large supply of nylon cord, cans of pork and beans, a loaf of bread, a large can of water, and lots more ammunition. There was also a transistor radio. When we saw it at the station, the dial was not tuned to any station, but police speculated that Whitman may have been tuned in to a play-by-play report of the consternation he was causing as he perched there for an hour and a half this afternoon.
Now, again, one thing I have not mentioned, but many of you, if you're aware of the story, might be asking why not. He had served in the Marines. And when you heard them talk about the accuracy he had, I first learned about this shooting at the University of Texas because I was in the Marines at the time at Camp Pendleton, and we were in rifle training. Now, in the Marines, you have 3 levels of training, of achievement. Marksman, sharpshooter would be better, and then, of course, you have expert rifleman. Expert rifleman means you can put 10 bullets on an iron scope, no scope whatsoever, using your iron leads only, into something about the size of a small dinner plate at 500 yards. In fact, out of our battalion, there was only one other guy with me that we had expert. But one of the drill instructors made a point talking about how many he had killed from the tower, and said, obviously, if he'd been an expert rifleman, he would have killed many more. And I have to admit, we all kind of laughed. Gallows humor. But we're talking about not just his wife and mother killed, but then those he shot down on the street. It was the deadliest mass shooting by a lone gunman in U.S. history at that time, followed about 20 years later by a McDonald's massacre, which we'll talk about another day. It all came to an end when 2 police officers and a man that they deputized who worked at the university got up to the tower, and with guns they finally brought him down and killed him. An autopsy was done, and there was found in the autopsy a tumor in his brain, very small. There was speculation, but no confirmation. Did that lead him to this event? The belief by some was that it might have been an aggravating way of pushing him to anger faster than others might do if they didn't have this tumor. And then maybe he might not have. But there was a lot of premeditation that went into this. You heard what he took up to the tower, the list of the weapons. And I mean, he took everything. He took vitamins, Excedrin, earplugs, rope, binoculars, a machete, toilet paper, a razor, a bottle of deodorant. It was an August day in Texas. It was going to be hot. That he knew. But when he started shooting, the concern then was what could be done to get him down as fast as possible. Supposedly, when he was age 6, his IQ was listed at 139. And his academic achievements encouraged both parents at that time to push him to try harder, to do more than what he was doing. And that's where his break came with his father. And as soon as he had his birthday, where he could enlist in the Marines, he did, without his father's knowledge. And he did earn a sharpshooter's badge. Not an expert. But at that height, 230 feet above the streets of Austin, Texas, and with little of any cover for many on the ground below, he did not have to be that good of a shot. And yet he still killed many and left many others wounded and families destroyed. Charles Whitman, at the age of 25, carrying out the snipings from the University of Texas Tower. August 1, 1966. Tomorrow's story behind the story, I'm going to focus on an interview I did with a man that many of you will know just when I mention his name. But what you might not know in the interview I did, I was told, do not ask this question. Do not raise this issue. It was, of course, the first question. It wasn't the first, but it was certainly going to be in my line of questioning. As I sat down to do an extended interview with CBS commentator at that time of 60 Minutes, Andy Rooney. The story behind the story of my interview with Andy Rooney. That's tomorrow. Our second hour is yet to come. And, of course, remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can hear podcasts of this program at Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook.
John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. There's only one place you can get pizza cooked over coals, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Of course, Napoli Brothers has a great selection of pasta dishes. Between the pizza and pasta, trust me, you will not leave hungry. Then, a few doors down, Lit Cigar Lounge, a wide variety of quality cigars, each offering a unique smoke. That cigar, some premium whiskey, all you need to do is enjoy. Lit Cigar Lounge and Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, Chesterfield Valley. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as support dogs for our brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Finally, March, the season of fresh starts, more daylight, more energy. A perfect time to take a fresh look at your home. Your windows or doors are outdated and efficient? Check with Renewal by Anderson. From your first design consultation through final installation, every detail is handled by one experienced, dedicated team. Clear communication, precise craftsmanship. Renewal by Andersen Windows, built with our exclusive Fibrex material, stronger than vinyl. And right now, during our March savings event, take $400 off every window, $800 off every door, and get a free upgrade to Smart Sun Glass. No money down, no payments, no interest for 12 months. But this ends March 31st. Call 877-WINDOWS, 877-WINDOWS, or visit rbastl.com. rbastl.com. Superior products, exceptional service.
This is News Talk STL.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
They don't even want to sit down and talk. Overtures were made yesterday to the ranking Democrat on the Senate Appropriations Committee. Countless overtures have been made to the Democrat leadership, and they have basically said, sorry, we don't want to talk. So here we are in the 26th day now of a government shutdown instigated by Democrats after they had agreed to the very bill that they are now opposing, and are now opposing even sitting down and talking and negotiating on the things they say they want. Explain that one. Mr. President, this is borderline obnoxious. This is indefensible, it is unjustifiable, and there are American people who are going to hurt as a result of this, and those already who work at these agencies, some 120,000 at one agency alone that aren't going to get paid, who perform critical security missions for this country.
That is South Dakota Senator, the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune. And when he talked about those critical agencies and the critical needs we have, we've kept a lot of folks in place, but we're seeing it begin to get worse. One, we're seeing more threats of violence inside our nation by Islamists and others supporting Iran at this point. And then we also see flight schedules being juggled in such a way that you have to get to the airport maybe 4 hours before your flight. And even then, you might not get on. It will take too long to get everyone boarded. As I reported in the first hour, we had a Southwest flight today that suddenly got diverted because of a fear on board the plane. Someone had on their cell phone a Muslim call to prayer, and it sounded at a particular hour while they were in flight. And a decision was made to divert immediately to Atlanta. And before anyone could come off, agents went on board, police and others, and saying, everybody raise your hands above your seat and stay seated until we come to you and let your row exit, one row at a time. Turned out to be no threat, but the fear is there because we're seeing increasing violence and threats of violence from individuals and probably some groups inside our nation. This is what you get when you open up your borders, as Joe Biden did. Thank you, Joe Biden. And, of course, now in the midst of dealing with Iran and the conflict underway. And in addition to the shutdown of the government, Democrats are vowing to shut down the Senate because of the Iran conflict. And it continues to escalate. Welcome to hour number 2, Larry Connors USA, March 10, 2026. With Larry Connors USA, you are going to get news, analysis, commentary, and education. You're going to know more when you finish this hour than you do right now. And coming up later in this hour, a book titled Endowed by Our Creator. John G. West, the author. Subtitled The Bible, Science, and the Battle for America's Soul. It is timely, and it is a real battle for America's soul at this point. That's coming up later in this hour. And also, James Carville, the Raging Cajun, who got Bill Clinton from Arkansas into the White House. And he's saying the Democrats are crazy. That's right. He said they need to fall back. They need to rethink strategy. They need to moderate. They just need to calm down, basically. But the Raging Cajun has been off on his own rant against Trump, claiming and admitting, yes, I had Trump derangement syndrome, and I'm effing glad I do. That'll be coming up later. In the meantime, in dealing with the shutdown and the fact that, as you heard John Thune say, everything they said they wanted, we did for them, we put up in front of them, and they still don't even want to have any talks with us. The game the Democrats are playing right now is simply to toy with this nation. And Americans are going to be suffering. The very ones that they claim that they're going to be helping. But again, Hakeem Jeffries.
Completely and totally out of control group of people. It's the reason why we are in a DHS shutdown right now, because Republicans have refused to agree to the type of bold, transformative, meaningful, and dramatic reforms we are demanding in order for the Department of Homeland Security funding bill to move forward. And I won't go through all of the demands, much of which we've talked about repeatedly in the public, but one of those demands is keep ICE out of sensitive locations. And we've defined that as schools, houses of worship, hospitals, and polling sites. We want an explicit prohibition that ICE can go nowhere near any polling sites in the United States of America. It's one of our demands. We're not going to bend on it.
It's a demand. It's a demand. Hakeem Jeffries and the left are making all the demands they want right now because they think that they can put us into a gridlock in our nation when we need to be forging and coming together. And we have I would say, a common enemy right now, but not if you look at some of the left. And, of course, that involves what we're doing right now with Iran and why we're doing it. And there is conflict not just from the Democrats, but also from one particular Republican, which I'll get to in a moment. But for an update on where we stand right now, General Raising Cain, the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Since our last update, CENTCOM continues to make progress across the southern flank. To date, they've struck more than 5,000 targets. U.S. Strategic Command bombers recently dropped dozens of 2,000-pound GPS-penetrating weapons on deeply buried missile launchers across the southern flank. We also have struck several one-way drone factories to get at the heart of their autonomous capability. And of course, alongside our regional partners along the southern flank, continue to execute intercepts against one-way attack drones using fighters and attack helicopters. Our strikes mean we've made significant progress in reducing the number of missile and drone attacks out of Iran. Ballistic missile attacks continue to trend downward, 90% from where they've started, and one-way attack drones have decreased 83% since the beginning of the operation.
And every one of those drones we take down and every one of those ballistic missile sites we take down saves American lives in the region. We got 40 to 50,000 troops already there, in addition to what's been flooded in for dealing with Iran. But Kentucky Senator Rand Paul says we shouldn't even be there, and he questions it on two levels. One, I would be willing to accept. One, I would not.
As far as the reasons for the war, there have been many different reasons floated, but none of them, I think, have been very convincing. One reason is that we want to free the Iranian people from oppression. I have a great deal of sympathy. I want people to be free around the world, but if our foreign policy is to free oppressed people, I'm not sure where war would end. I mean, there are many people that are said to be oppressed in China, Tibet, the Uyghurs, North Korea, Russia. Where would war end if our goal is to free oppressed people? So I think that goal is too grandiose and would perpetually tie us up in war. Another statement has been made, well, they're a week away from a nuclear weapon. You can take clips from the 90s all the way through the present of people arguing that they're a week away from nuclear weapons. Then there were arguments made where their ballistic missiles are almost able to reach the U.S. But then our intelligence countered that and said, really, they would be 6 months to a year if they made that attempt.
And you know they're going to try to make that attempt. I would go along with Senator Paul saying we cannot fight oppression across the face of the world. We cannot be the nations of the world's police officers anymore. But we cannot allow an enemy like Iran that has proclaimed repeatedly and has taken action to do so to kill Americans, Jews, Israel, USA, anyone that stands in their way and their jihad view. There's a new survey out from Quinnipiac University showing a wide partisan divide when it comes to support for our U.S. military operation, Epic Fury. 53% of the voters questioned say they oppose the U.S. military action in Iran. They oppose it. 53%. There is a Fox News poll conducted shortly after that same survey showing Americans split at 50-50. Where do you stand? Do you understand, accept that the Islamists have made it very clear, be they in Iran or anywhere else around the world, that they want to take control of our nation, you and your home, your family? They make that very clear.
Wants to put a Muslim ban. He wants to ban Muslims. We will tell him, this isn't your country to ban. This is the land of Allah, as every land is the land of Allah. And there are Muslims here that are going to be here. And if you don't like it, I would suggest he goes somewhere else. But I don't know where he's going to go. If he goes back to Europe, a lot of Muslims in Europe. I've been there recently. You go to Africa, you go to South America, you go to China, you go to Malaysia, you go to Japan, you go to the Antarctic. There's Muslims. So I would make a suggestion. If he wants to go somewhere where there is no Muslims, I suggest he goes to hell. And know that our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has given us the glad tidings that this religion of Islam will enter every household. Every household. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Sahih Hadith, he told us, this ummah, the guarantee, this ummah who will be victorious, and those that try to overcome them will not be able to.
I want to say to Rand Paul, are you willing to accept that kind of rhetoric and truly believe they do not want to destroy our nation? If he says, I don't see a threat here, this is how nations are brought to their knees, because they turn their back, they don't pay attention, or they just want to explain it away. This is not a full declaration against all Muslims. It is against jihadists. It is against Islamists, who, again, have made it very clear that they want to see the USA fall.
Achieve the victory. We haven't done anywhere near enough. And the people here, I promise you, we do feel ashamed. We do feel like we're not doing enough. We do feel like change needs to come, because change must come. And in the form that it must come is that this empire, the American empire that's been hurting our people since the beginning, the imperial Western powers that have been hurting our people since the beginning, they must fall. And inshallah they will fall. And my message to the people of Gaza and the oppressed peoples across the world is that there are people here, both young and old, who are going to be willing to fight and are willing to put their lives and everything they can on the line to bring these empires down, because they must come down.
He's talking about the USA. That's a Dearborn, Michigan Muslim. He's not talking about his religion as a Muslim, but as an Islamist. Zoran Mandami, Muslim, elected mayor of New York City. There's been an uproar because his wife posted on social media celebrating some remarks celebrating the Hamas attack on Israel October 7. And when she got flack over that, Mandami came out and said, "You cannot go after my wife."
Is it anybody's business, and is it fair to question you about it?
You know, my wife is the love of my life, and she's also a private person who has held no formal position on my campaign or in my city hall. I, however, was elected to represent all 8.5 million people in this city, and I believe that it's my responsibility, because of that role, to answer any questions about my thoughts and my policies and my decisions.
He's right to an extent, but she is his wife, and you know what the left would do if Melania did anything 180 degrees from Trump, or Barron, for that matter. I would not want to be picking on, quote, children. Never did during Hillary and Bill Clinton going after Chelsea. But when she became a young adult and started speaking on her own, well, then she was fair game. And Mandami's wife is fair game because she is his wife, and she did post congratulations and celebrations for those who carried out the October 7 attack against Israel. And there's a photo that just came out of the Gracie Mansion. It happened just a couple of nights ago. Mandami had a photo inside of the mansion where he and his wife reside as New York City mayor and first lady, with a dinner with Mahmoud Khalil, who's been labeled by the Trump administration as a Hamas supporter. And Mandami wrote in the Post, for Mahmoud, this past year has been marked by the profound hardship and by profound courage. So he's celebrating a guy, again, who was all about kill the Jews, kill Americans. You can't really separate Mahmoud from Mandami, nor Mandami himself from his wife. They are like ilk, and it is not good for our nation. Which brings us to my next guest. He got out a book that we're going to talk about extensively to the point of the real issue. The title is Endowed by Our Creator. Subtitle, The Bible, Science, and Battle for America's Soul. I think we are in that battle. Are we going to win it? Are we currently losing it? Lock and load. Ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Previously, I've told you about dustless blasting, a special service offered by Wellington Environmental. It could work for you in your place. Recently, a crew removed a driveway sealer that had failed. The owner wanted to go back to the original concrete so it could be properly sealed. Dustless blasting worked. That homeowner is happy. Now, sometimes surfaces need pressure washing instead of blasting. In fact, there was an exterior stone fireplace cleansed by pressure washing, and when it dried, all the dark stain was gone. That stone had its original appearance. Wellington is versatile with blasting. Dustless blasting, or whatever you need. They will evaluate and make a decision. How do you get them to your door? Very easy. Call 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Wellington Environmental, making your world great. In fact, be safe, be well with Wellington Environmental. McGuire Moving is Silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check VincentsJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. VincentsJewelers.com. VincentsJewelers.com.
This is News Talk STL.
Jimmy's in the back with a pocket of high. If you listen close, you can hear him cry. Oh, Lord, heaven knows we belong way down below. Sing it. Oh, Lord, heaven knows we belong way down below. Way down below, way down below.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
My next guest has out a book entitled Endowed by Our Creator, and I want to read to you what Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House of Representatives, had to say in a foreword to it. He said, John West reminds us that the Founding Fathers meant that our rights come from our Creator. Our current crisis of culture and spirit will only be healed by the return to those Creator-endowed rights. I think many of us would agree with that. To address it directly, political scientist Dr. John West, who's also vice president of the Discovery Institute, a public policy think tank. Dr. West, glad to have you on board with us.
Larry, thanks for having me.
So where do we stand at this point in a thumbnail sketch to begin with in the battle for America's soul?
Yeah, well, in conjunction with my book, we did a survey of a couple thousand Americans, and it showed some good things, but it showed some troubling things. One really troubling thing is that only less than 4 in 10 Americans now think that our rights come from God. Most Americans think our rights come from government or for other human beings, and the problem with that, our founders knew, is that if our rights are sort of granted to us by government or by other human beings, they can also take it away. And their point is that our fundamental rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, came from God, and so no one can rightfully take that from us. And that's one of the things that distinguished us from the French Revolution, from the Russian Revolution, from all these other things that turned out terribly, was our belief that our rights are fundamental and they are given us by our Creator. So it's a little bit concerning that most Americans now don't believe that.
And yet our Declaration of Independence does proclaim all men are created equal. Now, granted, we have a stain upon the fabric of our nation that would be slavery, that suggested that maybe not all men were going to be treated equally, even if we say they were created equal.
Yeah, but, you know, the interesting thing about that is slavery has existed throughout most of human history and also even exists today around the world. So the really interesting question is not, you know, did we have slavery, which we did, but that we got rid of it. And why did we get rid of it? Because of actually what you decided, all men are created equal. That phrase has actually appeared in American newspapers and media outlets over 300,000 times in the past 250 years. And that was a standard that then people wanted to live up to. And even within just a few years after 1776, many states in America that had allowed slavery abolished it, because they understood what all men are created equal means. And even those states that didn't, like some southern states, like Virginia, actually at least considered legislation to try to end slavery. They weren't able to at that time. But what I'm saying is the Declaration set up a standard that we then lived up to.
But to that point, some of the same ones who signed our Declaration owned slaves. Hypocrites?
Well, of course, most humans are hypocrites in various ways, but I think the interesting thing is that even the slave owners felt guilty about it. And so let's take Thomas Jefferson and James Madison. They did own slaves, but they also did try to get legislation through. They weren't successful, but they tried in Virginia that after a certain date, people born into slavery or born to slaves would actually be born free. And so they actually had an emancipation plan that they tried to advance. And many other founders who had owned some slaves, they ended up emancipating them and giving them their freedom. And because they understood what the standard that they were proclaiming meant, it also ended up having implications for them.
This is all sounding high and lofty, but there are still in our midst those who would be more than willing and quick to put slavery back into position and degrade men, women of color.
Yeah, no, really concerning of the last 5 to 10 years. I mean, in my lifetime, I didn't think we'd see this again. I grew up after the Civil Rights Movement and in the 70s and 80s and thought we had disposed of that, but there are people who are now arguing for actual racism, racial supremacy, things like that, and in fact repudiating the founding, and in fact saying there's a guy named Curtis Yarvin who thinks that the wrong side won in the Revolutionary War and that we should be run by elites, and that the idea that all men are created equal has been disproven by science. And I think part of that, people have a misunderstanding. The founders were not claiming that everyone is equal in everything, that you have all the same wealth or the same talents, but they were proclaiming that in our fundamental ways of being human, we were all created equally by God with the same basic rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that no human being is so superior to anyone else that you have the right to rule over them like a dictator, and that no one is so good, because they also thought humans were fallible, and this is a real difference between other revolutions. French Revolution, which ended in disaster. Yeah. Anyway.
So how does that either conform or conflict with the phrase unalienable rights?
Yeah, I mean, the unalienable rights means that, again, our rights don't come from government. They come from God. Therefore, government can't rightfully take over our rights. They can't rightfully, kill us, or secret police take us away, or impinge on our legitimate liberty. Now, the founders didn't think liberty was license. You can't hurt other people, but the right to even earn the keep from your own job. Many people in America don't know. In other nations, sometimes you need permission if you're going to move to another city, or you need permission about what sort of job you're going to go after. In America, we don't have that, because our founders understood that there are really fundamental rights that government can't take away from us.
And this is also not just built upon race and ethnicity, but as religion as well. And in fact, the Democrat U.S. Senate candidate in Texas, James Tallarico, says displaying the 10 Commandments in public schools is an act of violence against Christianity and Judaism.
Well, I'd say his comment is an act of violence against Christianity and Judaism and against Western civilization, because everyone, not all the founders were Christians. Most of them were, but some were not. But they all agreed that the Judeo-Christian tradition coming from the Bible, that moral tradition, was the really foundation of a civilized society. So the idea that we can't recognize that and that influence today is preposterous. And that's James Tallarico is part of what's wrong with America right now.
Well, he also boasts that I'm more religious than many of our founding fathers.
Well, that's a misnomer. So there were some like Jefferson and even Franklin who were more deistic, if you will, but there were a lot. Most of the people say at the Constitutional Convention, so that was a few years after the Declaration, were members of traditional Christian churches. Some were actually involved in lay ministry. They were actually very, very devout, and so there were a lot of people. It was a mix, but there were a lot who were very devout, and they all agreed on the basics that God gives us rights, that there's a moral law, that when they talk about laws of natures and nature's God, that God set down that were good for civilized society.
And then there's another aspect that has crept into society and today's culture through the woke push, and that is, even Tallarico states that God is non-binary.
Well, I happen to be a Christian who believes in the Bible, and I don't think you find that there. And frankly, I don't think people are. I mean, this is sort of also the revolt against science with regard to human beings. Human beings are male or female. They're not six genders, as I think Tallarico says. There are two sexes, and that, yes, there are some people who may have some serious birth defects or other things but in general, there's male and female, and that actually is what science shows and what our biology shows. And the people who claim otherwise are really revolt against reality.
Well, that brings us to the underlying title for your book, Endowed by Our Creator, where it reads, "The Bible, Science," suggesting they should be together in a battle for America's soul.
Yeah, the point I'm making, many people don't realize, like, our belief in human equality, it did come from biblical beliefs that we're all created in the image of God, but our founders also thought that nature itself provided evidence that we were created, and so that we weren't just self-created and that we owe our existence to God. And so they both went together in the founding, and then after that we had people who misused science to try to claim that, well, no, we're not equal, we should be ruled by experts who are unaccountable to the people, and this sort of happened, the rise of the progressive era. I also tell that story in the book. But then I think reality is coming back. I mean, today science actually points to a creator more effectively than it has for a couple of hundred years. And we've also learned, I think, through the COVID experience, of the dangers of unelected experts being given complete authority.
Right. Political scientist John G. West, again, the Vice President, Discovery Institute Public Policy. That's a think tank, and the book is Endowed by Our Creator, available everywhere. Dr. West, I want to thank you for your time and your input, sir.
Thank you for having me, Larry.
You bet. We'll do it again. Yeah, we do need to have a return, and we need to be aware of the battle for America's soul. Now, how I'm going to make the change from America's soul and the battle for it to James Carville calling out the Democrats is a hard turn, a hard left turn, I'll point out. But I'll do it for you. And also, Jesse Jackson in the past, Reverend Jesse Jackson, and Donald Trump.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. When I have business clients or guests from out of town, I often take them to Cafe Napoli. I know they're going to enjoy any of the Napoli locations. Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, next to Napoli C, Napoli Kirkwood, or Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Excellent food and intellectual conversation, if they bring the intellectual conversation. And NapoliSTL.com. NapoliSTL.com. You should know that when I endorse Wellington Environmental, it's because I believe and know they will do you right. Wellington takes pride in providing homeowners and businesses whatever they need. You need some dustless blasting? They will take care of that. You need some mold remediation? They can do that. They take pride in training their team to perform multiple services and having the equipment ready to get jobs finished. That's important to you. You make just one call, and you call a company that's been around for more than 35 years with more than 45 technicians in the field. Most of you know finding good workers, then having them show up on time could be difficult. Not for Wellington Environmental. They're there at the designated time, ready to go. Check them out to see what they could do for you. Dustless blasting or anything else you need. Wellington Environmental, 314-644-4930. 314-644-4930. Be well with Wellington.
This is NewsTalkSTL.
Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more.
What you say?
Hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack. And don't you come
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I now want to bring forth a friend who, when we opened this Wall Street project and we talked about it, he gave us space at 40 Wall Street, which was to make a statement about our having a presence there. And beyond that, in terms of reaching out and being inclusive, he's done that too. And created for many people a comfort zone when I ran for the presidency in 84 and 88. And many others thought it was either laughable or something to avoid. He came to our business meeting here in New York because he has this sense of the curious and a will to risk to make things better, who's an effective builder of building to the builder people. Last year, he was a part of our workshop, of our panel workshop on what are the challenges and opportunities. And so this, a year later, Donald Trump, for a few minutes, challenges and opportunities to embrace the underserved communities. Donald Trump.
That's the Reverend Jesse Jackson in 1999 talking about Donald Trump, who at that time was a Democrat, loved by the other Democrats, praised by them. He still had capitalist ideas, obviously. And he didn't really, while he was with the Democrats, he didn't buy into everything that they were beginning to evolve into. But Jesse Jackson, with his Rainbow Coalition, when he ran for president, was trying to bring people of all colors together, say we are all equal. Now, the rainbow, of course, then got hijacked by the leftist, liberal, gay, GBTQ, whatever, X, when in fact it was really, truly trying to blend people and bring everyone together. And among those that was willing to step forward and help Jesse Jackson, as you were hearing him speak about, Donald Trump provided free office space for his coalition at 40 Wall Street to help support all black economic initiatives. And here is Donald Trump's reaction to what Jesse Jackson said.
Well, it is an honor to be here, and I was with Jesse last year, and we had a lot of fun, and it was a little different. Jesse started off by saying, most of the wealth in this country is in the hands of a few. And I thought to myself, is that a bad thing? What's wrong with that, Jesse? And he said, listen, I want some office space in your building on Wall Street, because the wall on wall will fall. And I said, it's okay, Jesse, I'll make a good deal with you. I'll get you some space. You'll pay about $40 a foot. And he said, no. I don't want to pay 40. I said, how about 30? No. It was the cheapest deal I ever made in the history of 40 Wall Street. Is that right? He got it for nothing. It was a very tough negotiation. You know that, right? He's a terrific guy. We love him, and I'm here for him. And I will tell you, a large percentage of the people, and especially in construction, that are building these great jobs are black and minorities, and I'm very proud of it. We have close to 25%, and I think the number's going up, and they do a great job. There are no better builders than we have in New York, and a big percentage of that is black and minority folks.
That's Donald Trump in 1999, talking about how he worked out a deal with Jesse Jackson so they would have space for black economic initiatives at a zero cost at 40 Wall Street. Now, the other day, and I had a commentary running on this as well, when the eulogy was being held for Reverend Jesse Jackson, his son, Jesse Jackson Jr., had made some remarks that the left tried to ignore and walk away from. I pointed it out on this program, and I pointed it out in a commentary, and I've seen reaction from many of you. And that was the point that Jesse Jackson Jr. had tried to make it clear to those invited, this is not a political event. This is a eulogy for my father. And he later said, I just watched 3 former presidents, Obama, Clinton, and Biden, here at the eulogy for my father. And listening to their remarks, they did not know my father. He was condemning them because they were basically using it as a political opportunity to push division. Not just political division, but racial division as well. They were basically, as I phrased it in one of my commentaries, they were politicizing on the casket of his father. Yes, they did address some things in a spirit of eulogy for his father, but they could not pass up an opportunity to condemn, especially Donald Trump. And while he did not name Donald Trump, Barack Obama talked about there are still those among us, even in high positions, who seek to divide and separate us. You knew who he was talking about. And so did Jesse Jackson Jr. In the meantime, the Democrats are trying to figure out what do we need to do to win back the White House, or can we? Well, first of all, they've got the midterm elections coming up, and that's going to be critical. I read a poll survey for you at the beginning of this hour. We are somewhere near 50-50 divided in this nation right now. Should we go after Iran? If you listen to Rand Paul, if we're going after it only because we want to alleviate oppression in the world, that would be difficult. That would be a forever battle, and I don't want that. But if we're worried about them building a nuclear weapon to destroy us and Israel and ballistic missiles that can reach us, yes. I don't care if they're 30 days or 30 weeks from having it. You want to put a stop to it. But you've got folks like the leftists that exist currently that want to simply find anything that would be anti-Trump, which is right now the war is a Trump action, and look to ways for condemning it. James Carville, the raging Cajun who got Bill Clinton, now the Arkansas governor's office, into the White House, is trying to tell his Democrat friends that you've got to back off. And he pointed out to one specific instance about Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, Democrat in Minnesota.
She started attacking white males. And I'm saying, wait a minute, let's stop. All right, in 2024, 72% of the people that voted were white. All right, that's just a fact. Of that 72, probably 48%, or 48.5% were males. So it's somewhere around, I did the math on the thing, about 33% of the people that are going to vote are going to be white males. Well, it's stupid to attack 33% of the voters.
Right.
That's not, you don't want to start there. You know, what you try to do is you start and you build up. And so what I would say to Congressman Omar, why don't you be a Democratic Socialist of America? Do what AOC did.
Just go ahead and proclaim that's what you are. Zohran Mamdani. Of course, they got him elected in New York City, but the backlash has been building since he took office, and it's going to continue to accelerate. I'm looking at a piece from a column published in Politico. And their columnist spoke to what he called moderate Democrats. And he said they do not seem to see their failed 2024 nominee as their next one. That would be Kamala. One South Carolina state senator said, "We tried it, it didn't work. Next person up." Another one stated, "I think we're going to be reluctant to pick somebody who didn't win last time." Harris has been going around the country promoting her book, 107 Days, her memoir about that historically short presidential campaign. She had even spoken out again against Donald Trump's State of the Union address, saying it's full of lies. Well, the Cleveland mayor, who is a Democrat, told the Politico columnist, "My preference would be somebody who can effing win." He then said, "Let the voters decide." The first black mayor of Columbia, South Carolina, former aide to President Joe Biden, says the race is wide open. Again, this is from Politico and their columnist, pointing out that the Democrats are so far to the left, they cannot win. Oh, would it be so? I would love for that to happen. But I do not want you to take that as a sign that you don't need to be involved and you can walk away from the polling places. You're not needed. You are needed, not only at the midterm, but going forward. Every election is critical. And you cannot forget, yes, elections have consequences, as Obama said. And I know the consequences I do not want to face after this midterm coming up, nor the next general election. And, of course, trying to get the SAVE Act pushed through to protect the integrity of our vote. Scott Pressler, a political activist, is going all around trying to make sure that is protected.
I have not spoken to Senators Tom Tillis or McConnell or Murkowski, and thank you, Senator Collins, truly for announcing your support for the Save America Act. But you know what we're going to do, Kaylee? I announced yesterday that we are going to be doing peaceful rallies in the backyards of any senator that has not yet announced support for the Save America Act. Alaska, I'm coming to your state. South Dakota, we're going to put peaceful pressure on Senate Majority Leader Thune to actually bring the Save America Act to the Senate floor for debate. Kentucky, you're going to see long hair come to your great Commonwealth, and we're going to be doing these peaceful rallies everywhere. And I tell you right now, the American people are not going to stop until this law is on President Trump's desk to be signed.
Now, Scott Pressler, when he mentioned that long hair, if you looked at him, he would look like a 80s hippie guy. He served at one time as the organizer for the Republican Party of Virginia in the 2016 elections. Came to prominence as coordinator of the March Against Sharia events organized by the anti-Muslim advocacy group Act for America. And now he's been pushing for Stop the Steal and get the SAVE Act in place. He has a degree in criminal justice. But he's making it very clear we've got to make sure we protect our vote. And there's been a development on that point involving Senate Majority Leader John Thune. Just today, bluntly rejecting President Trump's call to pass the SAVE Act, the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, by forcing the Democrats to deploy a talking filibuster, trying to oppose it. And Thune says the votes are not there for a talking filibuster. So he's pouring water on the proposal that would make it harder for Democrats to block the legislation. The legislation is very simple. It would require documented proof that you are a U.S. citizen to register to vote. The filibuster, of course, would require active debate on the Senate floor. But the Thune says, and I'm going to quote him here, the votes are not there, one, to nuke the filibuster, and the votes are not there for a talking filibuster. It's just a reality. He said, I'm the person who has to deliver sometimes the not so good news, that the math does not add up. But those are the facts, and there's no getting around it. Again, his comments coming after Trump told Republicans at an issues conference in Florida, passing the SAVE Act through the Senate is his number one priority heading into the midterm elections. And Trump said, it will guarantee the midterms. If you don't get it, big trouble. He said, the people are demanding it. Every time I go out, save America, save America. That's all they talk about. They don't talk about housing. He's saying we've got to do this. And he has threatened not to sign into law any bills passed by Congress, except the possible exception of legislation to fund the Department of Homeland Security, until the Senate approves the SAVE Act. The battle line is drawn. Thune obviously knows the numbers. This is one of those things that hold your palms open and hope and wish for something in one hand and just wait for whatever might happen in the other hand. Whatever you hope and wish for in one hand, the other hand you might have a big bird fly right over your hand. And that's what you would end up with. That's pretty much what Thune is telling President Trump at this point, which should reemphasize to you how important the midterm elections are for Senate, the House control, and pushing toward the general election. Thanks for listening. Remember our pledge, one nation under God.